Hey, so it's been a while. It's been a really long while. I've been super busy past like 2.5 months. There's a lot I want to fill you guys in on, and I absolutely will when it comes to the next episode. But I really wanted to be my first one back to be a real estate related podcast, and I got absolutely inspired by the Brady Bunch house failure. If you've been watching the news the past couple days, just on Yahoo or anywhere, you've probably seen links to articles about how the Brady Bunch house is considered the worst investment this lady has ever bought. And I really think this story is a great tale of the 2020-2021 real estate market, as well as consumerism and the idea of branding. I think there's a lot to unpack in here. I think it's a super fun episode to talk about. So let's go ahead and dive into the failure of the Brady Bunch house, which started from the moment that they said go. Building a real estate portfolio is as much about buying properties as being a de facto entrepreneur. I'm Karina Ufinger. I'm a multi-property investor, rental management company CEO, and also a landlord coach. I'm going to show you the systems and knowledge you need to thrive as a real estate entrepreneur. From your first property purchase to building a portfolio of passive income where you work less than 5 hours a week, you'll learn the essential information and skills to build a profitable portfolio and live the life you truly want. Whether you're well on your journey or just starting out, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Landlord Chick podcast. First thing I want to do is just give a brief overview of the Brady Bunch, just in case you're of Generation Z and you have no idea what this is, or if you didn't grow up in the U.S. and you didn't really have access to U.S. programming, you might not know what the Brady Bunch is. So the Brady Bunch was a 30-minute sitcom, which was on one of the major networks here in the U.S. in the 70s. It was a TV show that followed the story of a blended family. So you had a mom, which brought 3 daughters into the home, and then you have a father who brought 3 sons into the home. And the Bradys themselves collectively had a live-in housekeeper who was named Alice. The TV show revolved around everyone in the home. Even Alice herself had a couple episodes which were dedicated strictly to her. But it was really groundbreaking for its time because it addressed the remarriage of families, particularly remarriage after divorce, which was still something that wasn't shown that widely on television. So the whole premise of it was very groundbreaking. It was a TV show that really families sat down to watch together because you had the plot lines or the characters that were the parents that brought the parents in, then Generation X watched the TV show and likely had a kid that they matched up with in age or just wanted to be them when they grew up. Most of the girls watching the show wanted to be Marcia. I personally would have gone for Jan if I wanted to be somebody. And then if you were the boys watching the show, Greg was sort of the stereotypical heartthrob per se from that TV show. So it really is a TV show that the entire family could get into. It absolutely permeated pop culture. Like the Brady Bunch was really the first family show in an era of magazine, newspapers, and prevalent TV that just gained popularity everywhere, and it was used everywhere. So you were having interviews with the actors in teen magazines for the kids, and they were getting interviewed on late night shows, and you had everything going on with this TV show. It really was quite a phenomenon for its time. Now, to kind of give you an idea to gauge the popularity, I can give some other examples. So similar TV shows in other generations for the millennials, we would have had stuff like Full House, Step by Step. If you're in Generation Z, maybe possibly something like Modern Family is a pretty good equivalent in the idea of how much it permeated pop culture and how any generation really kind of wanted to watch it, whether you were a kid, a teenager, or an adult. There were reasons for you to watch Modern Family. That was the setup with the Brady Bunch. It really was one of the first TV shows that truly brought kids and their parents together to watch the same TV show. And if for the Generation X, which is going to be a prominent part of our discussion here, it's obviously this bit of nostalgia. So they see this TV show, and if they were a huge fan of it, it obviously brings back ideas of a sort of nostalgic, happier time, where things maybe seemed simpler. Mom and dad were there. They were watching TV together, just sort of pulling at your heartstrings. For me, being a millennial, maybe something similar would be Home Improvement, because we watched that a lot as a family. Step by Step was something I more watched myself. Full House, something I more watched myself. But every family, I think, has, at least since the Brady Bunch came on TV, every family has those TV shows that they will watch together that actually put them all in front of the TV for the same TV show. So for Generation X, the Brady Bunch is a very nostalgic thing. For most TV shows, and the overwhelming majority, I think there's very, very few that don't do this. But the vast majority of TV shows, what they do is they pick the exterior of a home, a regular home, anywhere in the United States, and they take a picture, they film out in front of it, and they go, okay, this is what we want people to picture when they're thinking of the Brady family, the Tanner family, the Taylor family on Home Improvement, whatever it may be. This is the home we want them to think of. So whenever you go and you watch the TV show and there is a shot of the house, usually kind of starts out with the exterior, just kind of giving you placement, and then it'll show you interior, and obviously all of the acting and the scenes begin. Well, that interior usually is never, ever from that home, and it's usually very far off from the interior of the home in the sense of they're not even trying to mimic the interior of the home. So all of these interiors are built on sound sets, and they basically just film all their scenes there. If you ever were to walk into one of these fabled homes, whether it be the Tanner family in San Francisco or any other place, and you walked into it, you likely would be like shocked at first because the interior is not what you imagined based on the TV show. And the reason for that is because the interiors of homes, you have to think about all the material and the equipment that is needed for filming a sitcom. And if you take your average home, it's going to be really hard to rig that equipment up and have it still function as a set with a lot of space to have actors move around, different camera views. So for that reason, they don't usually, hardly ever do they use the interiors of these buildings. So with the Brady Bunch, they picked this house in California as the exterior, and it's been synonymous with the Brady Bunch since then. Even the set itself has become extremely iconic. So on the studio lot set, there was a very iconic living area, very wide open. It had some stonework features, but really the most popular and remembered part of that TV show is the iconic staircase. A very sort of chic staircase for the time, where it really was sort of this floating staircase. It wasn't up against a wall. You had just a single rail, I think, on one side. I don't know if there are even rails on both sides, which seems like a huge safety thing nowadays that you wouldn't get away with. But those really were the two most iconic features of the house. That if you watch the Brady Bunch, you're asked to recall the Brady Bunch, that's what you think of, is the staircase and the living room. So back in 2018, 2019, HGTV, very popular network over here in the United States for real estate, they got the idea that they wanted to work with the Brady Bunch stars, particularly the children, because they were the ones that were still alive. Unfortunately, all three of the adult characters had passed on. But HGTV wanted to work with the children that played the Brady kids to remodel this home into something like the Brady Bunch set. Amazingly enough, all of the actors got on board, so they were all part of the project. They actually rolled their sleeves up. They got dirty. All of it was documented in an HGTV program called A Very Brady renovation. So there's your background on this. Now let's kind of get into the true real estate side of it. So for starters, you have a home which is known for something other than just being a home. It has a certain brand attached to it. It has the Brady Bunch brand attached to it. I like to equate this when I'm explaining this to people. I like to talk about Harley Davidson and Honda motorcycles. So Honda motorcycles and Harley Davidson, first, I'm not going to tell you they're the same exact thing. But there's a significant price gap between them. Usually you're paying twice as much for a Harley as you would for a Honda. Now, yes, a portion of that is because you are getting different components that make up the bike. They could very well be higher quality components. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a biker. But there is an element of what you're paying in that price that is more based on the fact that it's a Harley and it's a brand with a legacy than it is really about what it costs to make that bike and to get a little bit of markup for the dealer. So there's a decent amount of what you're paying for, which is just brand recognition. We can obviously have the same argument about Starbucks and coffee at Dunkin' Donuts versus coffee at Starbucks. So the Brady house has this similar situation attached to the consumer aspect of it. You have a home which is not just a home, it's the Brady home. And that's the part that HGTV wants to capitalize on. They think it'd be a phenomenal idea to purchase the Brady Bunch home and then to flip it, renovate it, and make it look like the set of the Brady Bunch house. Now, when I first heard about this project, I thought they were going to approach it by sort of paying homage to the Brady Bunch house. By that, I mean, I didn't expect them to make it a cookie cutter, almost exact replica of what the studio lot had. I thought HGTV is relatively smart. They have a lot of people at their disposal to help them guide them through this renovation. Hopefully somebody is telling them that, yeah, we should pay homage to the set design, but in real estate, one place people don't want out-of-date elements is their kitchens and bathrooms. Like when I first read about this, I was really hoping somebody was on the other side whispering this into HGTV's ear. And in my head, I was picturing, you know what, they're going to create the living room, they're going to create the iconic staircase, probably going to create the sort of open concept dining area. And the kitchen, they're going to mimic the layout. They're going to have as similar things as they can, but they're going to modernize it because people want that. They need that in their homes. And I thought they'd take the same approach to the bathrooms. Well, as it turns out, they did not. I just recently learned that they did not. So when HGTV did this work, they turned it into the Brady Bunch house from top to bottom as much as they could, including what we would consider the rather out-of-date elements, particularly those in the kitchen. So in the kitchen, you had a very 70s kitchen. You did not have your modern amenities, your modern appliances. If you are renovating a property, let's say you buy something, you're obviously not going to buy like a Brady house that you want to keep in the 70s. But let's say you're buying something from the 30s or the 20s, 1880s, whatever it may be. And you want to renovate the kitchen, but you still want to maintain the aspect of vintage to it. There are ways that you can accomplish that while still giving people the modern aspects that they expect and want. So for instance, you could have pendant lights, which were very popular, not just in the 90s, but also in the 70s. You could have pendant lights hanging over the island, just like you might have in the 70s. If you're talking about your older property from the 1880s, you have other ways to incorporate it by maybe making the cabinets a dark oak or cherry, whatever it may be, one of the darker wood tones that woods technically tended to be in that era. You could obviously incorporate things like copper. Copper was pretty popular then. There are many number of ways that you could incorporate a vintage look into a kitchen without taking away from what people want that are going to buy it or rent in it. So unfortunately, HGTV went like for like and made a cookie cutter copy of the Brady Bunch home. So they created the iconic stairway, they created the entryway that's rather iconic, the bleed into the living room, the open concept dining area. But then they got to the kitchen and the bathrooms and they did the same exact thing and made them as much cookie cutter as they could. This is when their project truly started to fail. Because as much as people have nostalgia, nostalgia is something you want to visit. You don't necessarily want to live in it all the time and be constantly surrounded by it in every single room of your house. Because nostalgia is different than appreciating something that's vintage or classic or historical. In this regard, they've created a nostalgia haven, which is good, like I said, to go and visit, but no one's going to want to live in there. So that was really kind of like the first mistake they made from the get-go, the design. The second mistake they made is the timing of it. So they bought this property. They likely overpaid for it because they are buying the Brady house. They are buying something that is iconic. They likely overpaid a little bit for it, possibly quite a bit. I don't really know the details of the sale through that side. I know more about the details on the sale from HGTV to the private citizen. But they purchased this home, and because they had to absolutely gut the interior, like 100% gut, because again, when you walk in there, it looks nothing like the Brady house. So everything had to be torn down to studs. Everything had to be redone completely. So this isn't just what you think of as like a standard flip where maybe you're just tearing out the flooring, tearing out the kitchen cabinets, and you're tearing out the bathroom fixtures. No, in this sort of renovation, you are tearing out closets. You're tearing down walls. You're building up walls. You're doing it everywhere. You're building a brand new staircase. That's hardly ever done in a rehab that I know of. Usually the staircase is the one thing that you might slap some paint on it or some new flooring, but you're never really like moving it. You're never really putting in a whole new one. You're just going with what's there. Well, that's what had to be done with the Brady house, is it was an absolute gut. Every single thing had to be taken out. So obviously this is a very costly renovation because you are taking everything down to studs, everything down to cement. You really are truly starting from scratch. It's to the point that it might have actually made more sense to actually buy a vacant lot somewhere, build the Brady Bunch house from the exterior, and then have the stars come in and build it from scratch on a brand new lot. That would have saved them probably a fair amount of time and cost doing it that way. But of course, that wouldn't be the true iconic Brady Bunch house, so they wanted to go for 100% full authenticity in it. I guess you really can't fault them for that aspect, but you can when you tie it into all the other bad decisions that were made with this. So the renovations start. Congratulations, we get the pandemic. Everything shifts. Labor costs shift. Real estate costs shift. Oh my gosh, like everything is just totally up in the air. The market is crazy. People are drastically overpaying for things, whether it be property, real estate fixes, repairs, whatever it may be, you're drastically overpaying for it. Unfortunately, that's the way it went. They finish up the property. They list it. They list it for $5.5 million. Now, disclaimer here, I don't pretend to know what that neighborhood in that particular city of California is like. I don't happen to be a real estate agent in California. I don't have a connection. I don't have anybody that can run comps for me or anything or give me an idea. But I'm pretty certain that a comp for a home in that area would not sell for $5.5 million. Because at the very least, if you go on Google Maps and you kind of do your street view, it's a little bit out of date, but it's not horrendously out of date. But I can tell from that, those are not going to be $5 million homes. They're not even be $4 million homes. Honestly, they aren't even $2 million homes. I don't even think they crack 1.5. But HGTV gets this done based on the cost of everything for themselves, plus adding that little premium price point because it is the Brady Bunch house. They list the house for sale $5.5 million. At some point, they get their first accepted offer. However, spoiler alert, this ends up falling through. Not entirely sure why. There's some conflicting reports as to why. Some reports say that the buyer wised up and realized that it was a horrible investment to buy it at whatever price he offered at. Others are saying that when it came down to it, they really didn't want to live in a home that was that old in the sense of how it was redecorated, remodeled. There's a lot of different theories as to why this first buyer backed out, but the first one backed out. It sat on the market a long time. It took a while for another offer to come in. However, the offer that came in and the way it was settled, the citizen ended up buying it for $2.5 million. HGTV lost millions of dollars on this project. Now, I don't know how they're quoting losing millions of dollars because I'm sure they had some good ad revenue from the show A Very Brady renovation. I'm not sure if those are counted separately. They're not part of sort of what they're saying their revenue is from this. But HGTV is claiming that they lost millions of dollars renovating this house. It's completely possible just based on the fact that they tried to sell for 5.5 and sold it for 2.5. Take away the Brady Bunch sort of higher end price tag branding idea of it. Maybe then, based on what they did to it and the cost and everything, it would have sold for maybe 4 or 4.5. So you're still taking a hit as a seller. So HGTV still took a multi-million-dollar hit. Now this person purchases it. They're a huge Brady Bunch fan. They swear they loved the show growing up. They apparently even have said in interviews that they still watch the show to this day. Not like all the time, but they've gone back and rewatched the series. They claim to have had the lunch boxes and everything else that came with it. All the Greg Brady posters for their bedroom walls as a teenager. This lady was super excited to purchase this home. But almost instantaneously, she got buyer's remorse. So this lady buys the house for $2.5 million. I'm not sure if her original intention was to live in the house or not. Some articles say that it was her intention to live in it from the beginning. Others claim that she was more of a collector and just kind of like collecting it per se, but I don't know why you do that with real estate, because you'd want to do something with it to make you money or to use it somehow. But this lady ended up paying $2.5 million, and like I said, instantly has buyer's remorse because she realizes she's bought a property that is out of date. She bought a property that might have up-to-date plumbing and up-to-date code for electrical, but yet on the surface, it's extremely out of date, and it's honestly impractical for selling as it is. So she doesn't have a lot of options that she can do with this. She claims very famously in an interview that there's no one that would make pork chops and applesauce in that kitchen, referencing a very popular dish in the 70s. Based on the fact that the appliances and everything, the setup of it is just so out of date that it can't possibly be construed as a functioning kitchen. There's your problem first. You have a kitchen which is being labeled as ineffective, out of date. And really, when people buy real estate, one of the things they're most focused on is the kitchen. So right there, you've got a huge problem. The other problem you have is the bathrooms. Bathrooms, again, are out of date. Updating them isn't quite as critical as the kitchens, but there are certain elements of old bathrooms that people just don't like to see anymore. So for instance, if you're looking at things from the 50s and 60s, it was very popular to have tile on the floor and then tile go basically halfway or 3/4 up the wall. That's not something today that a lot of people like to see. Other examples are just color schemes. So avocado green was very popular in the 70s. My bathroom that I grew up with in my parents' home, I had an avocado green bathtub and an avocado green toilet. That's when the house was built, was 73, so we had all these 70s fixtures in the house. So in the Brady Bunch house, similar thing. They have these very 70s fixtures in the bathrooms. So this lady realizes that I can't really do what I wanted to with this house. And she also realizes, I think, that she's not going to be able to sell it for what she bought it for. And now she has a real quandary because she has a multi-million-dollar asset. She could do some things with it, but it's not necessarily what she intended to do with it. So what are the options that she had? Once she realized that she had this thing, this Brady Bunch house, which was not really resaleable instantaneously, and she couldn't live in it for whatever reason, what else could she do with it? Well, there are two distinct things that I think she has that she could use it for. I think you do have the potential to make it a very Brady Airbnb short-term rental, assuming obviously the city, that neighborhood allows for it. I think you have some strong potential there with Generation X, especially because they're getting to the age of being able to sort of travel independently without children. So going to an Airbnb like that, grabbing some of their friends who grew up watching the TV show, staying in that house, probably be a really cool thing for them. And you very likely could make some bank on that, given the fact that you have a more or less authentic Brady Bunch home. A fantastic way to make some real estate money with an Airbnb in that fashion, because it comes pre-themed. One of the biggest things that makes Airbnb successful is having a theme. And this one literally comes pre-made with a theme. You just have to add to it however you want to add to it, whether it be your very strangely adding cutouts of the TV stars from it. That seems a little creepy, but I don't know. Maybe that's an idea. But if you're taking that and you're launching upon it and making it very much more of a Brady experience, you could have a successful Airbnb there. There's no question about it. The other option, and this more falls into tourism than real estate necessarily, but you could certainly rinse and repeat what the Christmas Story home did. So in Ohio, there is the exterior of the very famous Christmas Story home. If you're failing to face A Christmas Story, I think you'll know it as soon as I say you'll shoot your eye out, kid. I grew up with this movie. My family loves it. I love watching it every year. Good old Ralphie with his Red Ryder BB gun shoots his eye out in his backyard, and that's sort of like the premise of this movie. He doesn't actually shoot his eye out, by the way, if you haven't seen it. It just breaks his glasses. But his teacher says you're going to shoot your eye out if you actually get a Red Ryder BB gun from Santa, and Santa tells him actually the same exact thing at the mall. You're going to shoot your eye out, kid. So anyway, the Christmas Story home, they have a setup where you have a gift shop across the street. And it's actually a really cool setup. I was able to go there 2 years ago on a vacation, stopping by on my slightly nerdy vacation to Presidential Homes in Ohio. I stopped by the Christmas Story home. So they have a gift shop, and they have also tours of the home. And the home on the inside, they have renovated as much as they can to make it look like the Christmas Story home. Because again, the inside of that home as it was bought is not going to be reflective of what you saw in the movie, because the movie was filmed on a soundstage. But it is the iconic exterior. So the street shots, everything like that, that is the home. So someone at some point bought this home, renovated it, turned it into a tourism home with a gift shop across the street and actually a bed and breakfast on an adjoining lot. So you have the Christmas Story home you can tour, the Christmas Story gift shop, and you also have a Christmas Story bed and breakfast that you can stay at. I don't know what the theming is of that bed and breakfast. Don't really quote me on anything like that, but it is attached to the property and it's all owned by the same entity. So that's certainly an option with the Brady Bunch home. Do something kind of similar, turn it into a tourist thing where you have tours, have a gift shop maybe in the garage. I don't really know. Again, this all depends on zoning, things like that. I'm sure that the Christmas Story people had to go for permits, pull some strings, get some zoning things done, things like that. So the same thing would apply to the Brady Bunch home. Although I have a hunch that they might be a little bit less successful doing that with this, just based on the fact that the neighborhood itself is generally over the Brady Bunch fervor, and that tends to happen when you have people who lived there prior to the home being really famous. They tend to frown upon all of the extra bodies and traffic that comes when the exterior of a home gains some fame. So very famously, the people that own the Tanner family house in San Francisco, I believe they had to actually put a gate up on the steps because people were like walking up onto the porch. They were taking pictures on the steps. I can understand that and make them feel uneasy. So they had to put a fence up. Actually, over a more modern home that's pretty famous is the Breaking Bad house. The Breaking Bad house, they actually had to put a fence up around the property because fans of the show were trying to throw pizzas onto the garage roof. If you've watched that show, it's a pretty iconic part where Walter, frustrated with his separated wife, brought over pizza, throws the box and everything up onto the roof of the garage, and it stays there for a couple of days in the timeline. But it's a very iconic thing. So since then, I guess the current owners of the home have had problems with people going there and trying to throw pizzas up on the roof. So they put a fence up around the house. So needless to say that when these homes become popular, it becomes an issue for the community and the neighbors. So I'm not entirely sure if they would actually have neighborhood support at this point for creating a tourist attraction of actual tours through the home with the Brady Bunch house. I have a feeling you're going to get a lot of pushback from the neighbors, possibly even the city. The opportunity for something like that needs to be a little bit down the road, I think. But anyway, I digress from that. But that's one way that they could actually use the house to make some money. Now, what is she actually going to do with the house? So this person that's paid $2.5 million, what has she said most recently is her intention now that she realizes she can't live in it and nobody else will live in it? Well, she says that she's going to open it up for a party venue. So for weddings, gala events, fundraisers, things like that. I got to admit, it seems like a pretty solid idea. Assuming, again, she can get neighbors to go along with it. I kind of wonder how parking's going to work. She's maybe going to have to bus people from an area where there's more parking because I just don't really see the neighbors being okay with something that is really residential area. There suddenly being 200 cars over the course of a weekend because of events going on at the house. So I do think there's going to be a little bit of issues in regards to having it function as a venue. But I will applaud the ingenuity there because it is a really unique opportunity to have some sort of fundraising or wedding reception or party at the Brady Bunch house. I think it'd be a good tactic for charities, for not-for-profits, to have events where it's like, come tour the Brady Bunch house and eat dinner with us. It's $500 admission. I don't really know what, but I think it's something that could be used for the better. Now, here's my issue with it still being something that she purchased. Despite us finding ways to create money through this property, you still have the fact that when she's done with it, she's likely going to have to make some substantial renovations. She's likely going to have to not completely gut it, but she's going to have to do a fair amount of gutting to get it ready to sell if she wants to get anything close to whatever top market value is at that point. Because it's unlikely that the 70s will be in fashion when this home is sold. So this very particular kitchen, the Brady living room, is going to need to be redone. It's going to need to be remodeled, which means it's going to be likely another couple $1,000,000 for her. So while we've talked about ways that she can kind of create money, I think those ways of creating money are more about cutting her immediate losses. I still think when everything is said and done, even if she has a successful venue business for 10, 12, 15 years, I think it's still likely that she's going to be losing out on money because even if she breaks even on the purchase at some point, she's going to have to start to accumulate money to pay for the renovations that'll need to be done to get top market value. And I'm really not convinced that you would be able to resell this beast and earn $2.5 million or $3 million even. I just don't see that happening. I could be completely wrong, but I know for one thing, at some point, the California real estate market truly has to give and it has to start sinking in property values and everything. I have a feeling because we have heard about the exodus out of California, that day is dawning closer and closer, which means that's another way that what she purchased it for in sort of like a relatively close post-pandemic market, it's going to continue to decrease because the post-pandemic market's going to go away. And California itself is seeing some shifting with population, which means home prices are likely going to have to come down. I think she's going to be out a substantial amount of money when she goes to sell it. All right, guys. That is an extensive and exhausting conversation about the Brady Bunch house. I thought this was so cool. I thought it's a way to talk about real estate in regards to flipping, Airbnb, what you can do with real estate, what you should and shouldn't do. And there were a lot of lessons to be learned in this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Our next episode will be that update that I promised you, where I've been the last 2 months, what I've been doing, what's going on in real estate. That is the next one that you guys are going to get. I hope you guys have been having a fantastic summer. I can't wait to tell you about my summer. Enjoy the beginning of your fall, and I will see you next time.